Here we're going to be talking about functions. So we want to look at them visually first. So in this video, we're going to talk about how a function is a rule that assigns each input to exactly one output quantity. That's what makes it a function. So your input is typically called x and your output is called y. Now we're going to get to some word problems or we might switch those letters, but for now we just have x's and y's. So we want to think about x as being your crazy x and y stands for you, y-o-u. So your x is just obsessed with you and that's what makes it a function. So x goes to exactly one y. And how we would say this in general is the output is a function of the input. So if I told you the dosage that we give our patients is a function of their weight, that means you plug in their weight and you get out the dosage. So it's kind of maybe the opposite of what you think. You say the output first, then the input. So the dosage is a function of the weight. Plug in the weight, I'll tell you how much medicine that they get. A function can be described using words, data tables, graphs, and equations. So we're going to start with some visual ones first. And graphically, you have a function as long as it passes the vertical line test, which I'll usually write as VLT, vertical line test. That means wherever you draw a vertical line, it's only going to intersect at exactly one point. There's not going to be two y values where it crosses. It's just going to be one point because each x is going to exactly one y. And that's what's making it a function. If the vertical line intersects more than once, then it's just not called a function. So usually, again, the input of a function is called x. It's the independent variable, so I goes with I. Input is independent. And then your output depends upon the x value that you input. So your output is dependent upon what you plug in. So like I talked about with the dosage, that output is dependent upon the weight, which is the input. So looking at these visually first, we're going to determine whether or not it's a function. So a function, again, each x goes to one y. That's how we know we have a function. So looking at this first one, my first input, my first x is 1, it goes to exactly 6, that's good to go. 2 only goes to 7, and 3 only goes to 8. So yes, this is a function. Each x has one y. Each input has exactly one output. If we look at the next representation, our first x value is 1. 1 goes to 6, and 1 goes to 7. This is automatically not a function. Not a function. 1 goes to 2 y values. Each x has to go to exactly one y. So the fact that there's the 0.16 and 17 on this shows you that that x value 1 is going to 2 separate y values, so it's definitely not a function. This last picture we have here, we would just want to check that each x goes to one y. So my first x value is 1. 1 only goes to 6, so far I'm good. My next x value is 2. That only goes to 6. And 3 also only goes to 6. So this one's trying to trick you. Each x is going to exactly one y. Looks like you have 3 x's that are all obsessed with you. You're still in a function. Each x goes to one y. So yes, this is a function. Each x has one y. And you could write it as an ordered pair if that helps you. 1 goes to 6, 2 goes to 6, and 3 goes to 6. So we see each x value, 1, 2, and 3 all only go to one y value, unlike our last one here where 1 went to 6 and 7. So that's why that one was not a function. Graphically, we're going to look at what this looks like by seeing if it passes this vertical line test. It can only touch the graph once wherever I draw a vertical line. So looking at this first graph here, if I try to see if this passes a vertical line test, well, I could draw a vertical line right over this graph, and it's not only just touching one spot, it's touching everywhere. So this is not a function. That definitely does not pass the vertical line test, which says it can only touch at most at one point. If we try to draw some vertical lines on this graph number 2 here, if I try to put in some nice vertical lines, I'm only touching once. If I go through here, I'm only touching once. Through here, everywhere I draw a vertical line, I'm only touching that function one time. So it looks like each x value has one y value. So yes, this is a function. It passes the vertical line test by only touching once, whereas number 1 over here does not pass the vertical line test. If I draw a vertical line, it touches every point on that graph, not just one. The next graph we have here, graph number 3. I can try to draw some vertical lines in here, and they should only touch once or else it's not a function. And right away, if I try to draw one line in here, it's touching twice. That means that point at maybe like -2 has a y value at 4 and at -4. I cannot have -2 going to both 4 and -4. This does not pass the vertical line test. So this is not a function. It fails the vertical line test by touching the graph twice. It only passes as long as it touches the graph once. So we have a couple of examples of things that do not pass the vertical line test, and then this nice parabola graph number 2 there is a function because it only touches the graph one time.